Welcome everyone to the Northern Gulf Land Condition Update webinar. Today's guest presenter is Nilo Gubius from the Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country, elders and traditional custodians. It is with respect for the traditional custodians of the Kuku Mulluridji people, whose land we stand on here at Mariba, that I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to elders, the knowledge holders, to present leaders and their passion for the country, and the future leaders who will carry on their culture, language and love for their traditional homelands. We at Gulf Savannah are enriched for the culture, history, language and ecological knowledge shared by the traditional groups in our beautiful region. I'm now going to hand over to Nilo. I'm going to stop sharing here.
Talk about some work that we did with Gulf Savannah last year, and have been analysing the information in the last couple of months. But this is a story that goes back to 2004 when the first sort of region-wide land condition assessment happened. And that was done by Kev Shaw and Joe Rolfe, and they repeated that in 2011-12 and 2015-16. So this is just an extension of that. So 289 sites were monitored last year, and this is basically a representation of where they all were around the region. As I said, I want to acknowledge Joe Rolfe and Kev Shaw, who started off this assessment and has enabled us to look at now 2 decades worth of what's happening with land condition. So 2004, 12 and 16, there are about 260 sites monitored throughout the region. But there's actually 112 sites which have been revisited on each of those 4 different times. So the other sites have actually varied a little bit over the years. And just for a bit of perspective, the Northern Gulf region is similar in size to the state of Victoria. We did it last year for the first time with a relatively new app, handheld app on your phone, which was really good in terms of ease of use, standardization of data collection, standardization, and it immediately gives you a score. It's great to be able to combine the photos, the point location, and the data all in one app. But in comparison to the previous time periods, it showed a massive drop in the last 7 years in land condition. And it took a little bit of trying to understand what the difference was, but the end result we came up with was that the land condition app, the LCAT app, measures against an ideal A condition, which is basically all 3P grasses, no woody thickening, good soil surface conditions, and no weeds, which is fair enough. But the monitoring that's happened, that started with Joe Rolfe and Kev Shaw, has actually been measuring against an original carrying capacity. So a lot of the landscape in the Gulf is wiregrass plains and firegrasses, and so they're not 3P or palatable, persistent and perennial pastures, and they never were. So it's a bit hard to actually discount those based on being what they are. So what we had to do then was actually go and look for those 112 sites that were common to each of the 4 survey periods, and reassess those using the original rapid land condition assessment method. So the results that I'm going to show are mainly as a result of the original land condition assessment method. And this is what's happening. So land condition has been expressed as a percentage of its original carrying capacity. So A, land condition is 100% of its original carrying capacity. B is 75% of the original carrying capacity. C is 45%, and D is 20% of original carrying capacity. So if we look back to 2004, the average land condition over those 260 sites was about 74% of original carrying capacity, which equates to a B. In 2012, that had dropped a little bit to 71, and then 2016, that dropped to 64% of its original carrying capacity, which is, yeah, go on.
Just quickly, the slides aren't actually changing in our view on the screen.
Oh, no.
Just quickly, just before you, Lara has put it up in our chat that they're not changing as you're going. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Is that, you can see that the graph slide there now?
Yeah, I can see it now, Neil. I saw it that each slide, we were still stuck on slide number 1.
Oh, that's a bummer. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is showing you the map. Can you see the map?
Yep.
So these are all the sites which were visited last year, but they're pretty much representative of what's been done for the last 2 decades. So I'll just go back to this figure now. So there's basically been a drop to, in the last 7 years, it went from 64% of original carrying to 60%, which is basically a B minus in terms of land condition. And the rate of decline from 2004 to 2016 was about 0.5% of long-term carrying capacity per year, and we've dropped 4% in the last 7 years. So that's pretty much keeping on that trend of decline in land condition. So in 2004, 69% of sites were discounted, and that rose to 76% of sites in 2012, 91% in 2016, 92% last year. So this is discounted for anything, could be one or more things. So it could be soil surface conditions, or it could be pasture composition, or it could be woody thickening or weeds. And this slide shows what the main culprits are, and it's probably no surprise to anyone, but these are the 4 years, for 2004, 12, 16 and 23 for pasture composition. By far and away the most sites discounted for pasture composition, and second is timber thickening. And soil surface conditions and weed invasion were secondary sort of discounts. So this is just an example of the timber thickening that's happened. This is the same site looking at 2015, 2023. You actually had to use your hands to take away the foliage so you could try to get a bit of a picture, but I've tried to outline some of the features which were the same in each photo, but it's quite difficult. And this is probably the most extreme, but it gives you an idea of what's actually happening out there in terms of woody thickening. So what does that mean? At the current rate of decline, the Northern Gulf, and if it keeps going at 0.5% per year, is going to have lost half of its carrying capacity by the year 2046, which is 22 years time. Current estimates are there's about 780,000 head in the district, in the Northern Gulf region, and so if we lose that to, and that's at current level, which is 60% of original carrying capacity. So if we're down to 50%, then we're probably down to about 650,000 head in 2046. That's from, and if we take that as 50% of what was originally there, we might have been able to carry 1.3 million back in the day when cattle were first introduced. But yeah, obviously with the decline that's happened, that 1.3 million was probably a bit high. So what can we do? We've got examples from the Gulf where, yes, we've got a trending decline in land condition, but we know that we can do things better. At at Blancourt from 1996 to 2010, they reduced stocking rates. They installed wet season spelling on a regular basis around paddocks. Feeding programs, crossbreeding and pasture improvement over the 15 years resulted in a 70% increase in the area of the property which was in A and B land condition, and 33% decrease in breeder numbers, which led to a 23% increase in weaning rates, increase in growth rates, 80% decrease in cow mortality, and a 93% increase in gross margins. At the Eco Beef site at Namuel, 2007 to 2011, they wet season spelled for 4 successive seasons. And then the paddock was heavily stocked over the dry season at a beast per 4 hectares. So there wasn't much actual difference in terms of yield, but the key productivity difference was the yield of 3P grasses and stylos, which is an indication of better land condition. In 2007, it was 31%, and that went up to 58% in 2011. So at a safe stocking level, another time period, 1995 to 1997 at Namuel, they went from 1 beast per 5 hectares to a beast per 7 hectares over 3 successive seasons. Got a 10% higher branding rate and dry cow cull weight of 56 kilograms heavier and a wet cow cull weight of 50 kilograms heavier. So we don't need to be keeping those high stocking rates to actually make money. We can actually make money at a lower stocking rate and improve your land condition at the same time. So this is some exercise I've been doing just recently with one of the properties in the Gulf, and we're looking at seeing what we can do with making a bit more money, but trying to do that by lightening the stocking rate. So first thing we do is actually say, okay, if we hold our steers a year longer, we're going to, I don't know whether you can see this, and we've got 1,400 breeders. Total calves are exactly the same, but we're just going to hold the steers back a little bit longer. We can put on an extra $30,000, or nearly $40,000, $35,000 gross margin for the year. What actually happens when you're holding your steers a bit longer is that you're going to increase your adult equivalent, so your stocking rate's actually going to go up a little bit. So how can we sort that? And there's a few things. If we go up, so if I go back to here, so it's gone up to 2,409 adult equivalents on that property, up from 2,137. If we increase our weaning percentage from 53% to 60%, our adult equivalents go up there as well, but we're getting 841 calves. So we're actually putting on another $50,000, over $50,000 of gross margin, but still our adult equivalent is going up. So how do we do that? If you've got 50% calving or 50% weaning rate or 60% weaning rate, we've got a lot of unproductive animals just taking up space, eating grass and putting pressure on that pasture. At 10% of PTEs, preg tested, empty, sold, this is what our gross margin is. If we get rid of 50% of those, we can go up. We can get rid of 100% of them, and we're still increasing our gross margin. So our sales are going, you know, our adult equivalents from getting rid of all those unproductive animals is back down to 2,344, which is lower than what we started with. So we can actually go from 221,000 gross margin here to 286,000 at a lower stocking rate, just by being a bit more productive and getting rid of unproductive animals. The same thing occurs if we look back at the original example. If we had 2,500 breeders on this property and we cut that down to 1,700 breeders, our adult equivalents would have been 3,800. It's now down to 2,800. Breeding 2,500 as opposed to 1,700. We're going to have slightly less calves, but we're going to have a higher gross margin. So we can really cut down our breeding numbers if we can improve our weaning percentages and cull what are just eating grass and not being productive. And I think this doesn't actually take into account the multiplier effects, which are going to show through of improved land condition, which is going to improve your pasture and animal growth rates, and actually going to improve your reproductive performance above that 60%. So you're actually going to be better off in the long run. And just some couple of slides of information that we can pull out from using that LCAT app. Just showing you what the different pasture is on a typical A land condition was actually mainly black spear and kangaroo grass. Your B land condition was either preferred species or intermediate species. The preferred were black spear grass, kangaroo grass, golden beer grass, and the intermediate species were wandery, plume sorghum, and Seca stylo. When you get down to C land condition, you're getting a lot more annual and non-preferred species like firegrass and greater grass, and wiregrasses, wandery, Indian cooch. And then your D land condition was again mainly your firegrasses, love grasses, and wiregrasses, wandery. So in terms of the understory timber thickening that you see happening, in A land condition, it's mainly your species which are also your overstory species, your bloodwoods, your eucalypts and ironbarks and box, but you see a little bit of breadfruit coming in there, and that breadfruit is then present all the way back down to D land condition. Your B land condition understory plants are also your ironbarks, eucalypts and bloodwoods, but also Bohinia, gutta percha, currant bush, conkerberry, cypress, Sesbania and mimosa. And the main understory plants for C land condition are tea trees, wattles, breadfruit, bloodwoods, not telling anyone anything there, I'm sure, and the same for your D land condition. So the questions I'd like to put to you guys is, how do we make producers aware of the issue? How can we change practice to better land condition by focusing on productivity per hectare per head rather than per hectare? And then, how are we as DAF, an industry advisory service, or as Northern Gulf, Gulf Savannah NRM, how should we tackle the problem of declining land condition? So, yeah, love to get some feedback.
I supply every single week, I supply 6 to 18 trailer loads of supplements from 40 Mile Scrub to Karumba. So every single one of them has a different carrying capacity, each area.
But how do we, in terms of trying to take the pressure off the land, because as we know, the trees are thickening. There's not a lot we can do about that, unfortunately. But the biggest impact is obviously the change in species composition through overgrazing. How do we get the average producer to consider that and actually look at this. This is what's happening with land condition and our pasture composition. It's like watching your lawn grow. You can't really see it till you go away and you come back.
Nilo, I'm always interested in these discussions, and I see it time and time again that there's so much emphasis on the management, which is 100% true, the management of your country and stocking rates, and that's very, very important. What I don't hear, Nilo, is what has to happen in that scenario, I believe, is there's just as much emphasis needs to be in your genetic inputs of your animals. So we hear it time and time again. Last figures I heard was there's a 47% reproduction rate in North Australia, and that's not wet rebreeds. That's carrying empties, and what we were the scenario you just showed then.
Yep.
And so you could realistically take that back at least another 50% in real terms. So if you look at that, and if you're not putting the genetic improvement into that herd, it's a no-win scenario. It's all downhill big time. So I think it's one thing to be talking management all the time, but at the same time has to be spoken about the genetic inputs. And it was interesting. I listened to Professor Kinder and Professor Hayes at Beef Week, actually, and two leading research scientists in their field and renowned internationally. And Professor Kinder just straight out and said it, there needs to be selection for animals that are best adapt to the changing environmental conditions. So we're telling people we need to decrease their stocking rates, but if we have a couple with that, animals that are adapted to the environment and they're functional and they reproduce in harsh conditions, isn't that just as big, if not bigger, to the piece of the pie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I guess it's both, I think. And obviously, my example where it was going from 53% to 60%, which is a modest sort of increase. And how you get there is maybe through genetics or I'm not sure which way anyone would want to get there, but obviously genetics is one way of doing it, or selecting better from within your own herd, or whatever. But what we don't like, if we're still going to have the same problem if we replace our 2,500 breeders with 2,500 breeders which are operating at 80-90% calving rate, then we're going to have an even bigger problem on our hands. So I think we've got to talk about both things. So how to increase our weaning percentage, but also we need to not be greedy and maintain our base that we're working off, the pasture base.
Yeah, and I think in these scenarios, Neil, it's quite beneficial to have the costs associated with these scenarios. We see profits all the time. If we decrease this, we decrease that, which is you know, what in real terms is the cost of carrying an animal, or an extra year, as Brett was just talking about. What's it costing us to carry that animal an extra year to get to that weight?
Yeah.
Again, if we got crikey people, and we're seeing it time and time again, and good luck to them, but we've got cattle that are being introduced into this in northern environments that just aren't adapted to that. So it's more costs, more imports, more supplements, more feed, more everything. I mean, that's not a pretty trail at the end of it, is it?
No.
So I think for me, it's people got to understand what both sides is, to me, just as important. So when we're sharing this information of what we need to do to.
If you've got conservative stocking rates which are still giving you that profitability, then you've got the buffer to absorb some of these times like you're describing now, where you have to sort of hang on to them for a little bit longer than you might have wanted to. But if you're stocked to maximum now, then you don't have much place to turn, do you?
No, you don't. You've got to sell fat cows.
Yep.
You've just got to sell cows.
Suggest that that's because the reproduction rates are so low in northern Queensland. I'll come back to the genetic inputs, but people are carrying more cattle to get more calves. If we, I haven't met Brent, but what we were just talking about, if your reproduction's that low, you'll need to carry more cows, carry more empties to get enough calves on the ground to pay the bills. That's where I come back to what's, to me, hand in hand in this discussion comes your genetic input. I just don't think you can have one without the other.
I agree totally, Lara, because if you're producing at 47%, you're struggling to get enough heifers to come back into the system. And so, yeah, you do have to keep those things, those empties to try and get a calf, at least every second year. But if you can get that breeding rate up, then at least you can cull and get a cash flow out of your empties.
Yep. So I feel like it's just that next step, Neilo. It just seems to be, to me, missing all the time when I hear these discussions, but it's sort of, they go together. To group them together, I think is important. How that it's that, how do you go that next step? It was Ian McLean that put that 70%, all the analysis are done, 70% of, and that's probably going back to our conversation before, but 70% of your profits comes back to reproduction. And it's exactly coming together. What we're talking about here is it comes back to getting a productive, efficient animal in a tough environment. That's really what it's coming down to, because if they're efficient in what they're doing, that ties into what you're talking about, Neilo, because you're not running empty cows running around a paddock and having to hold over empty cows doing nothing but consuming grass and supplement just to keep the production rates up. You can cut your numbers back and increase your rates. Isn't that part of the picture, is what I'm probably getting at?
It is.
Yep,
it is.
absolutely. I mean, as you've said, it's about nutrition, but the nutrition is also about how much feed is on offer in the paddock, which is all about stocking rates, which are going to vary with each season. And yeah, you're always going to have your protein supplements at time, be it urea or whatever else, for whatever class of animal. So, but the basis of it is having feed. Having plenty of feed is going to keep you in a reasonable condition, which is going to allow you to reproduce. So, yeah, it's all a big balancing act. But I think people are stuck in the mind frame of, as you say, Lara, we need to carry more animals to have more calves because the rebreed rates are so low. But if we can get around that, then and let's change our rebreed rates so we can carry less, get rid of our younger animals. Our empty animals. There's actually more feed available, and it actually feeds on itself, and so that it's not an easy. Yeah, if it was an easy answer, it would have been solved 50 odd years ago, but it's obviously not.
Those sites that you had photos of, and obviously there's and I've heard it around this. I had someone come out here the other day that hadn't been here for about 5 years on over here, and they couldn't believe how they used to be able to see, so far, and they can't see, say a K away anymore. They said it's just the trees have got that thick. When we're talking about that, that dense thickening that's coming through, and the inability to clear country or, thin our country out, and the impact that's having on grasses, getting more and more of that canopy and grass growth. I imagine that's all part of the study that you guys have been doing.
Yeah, I mean, the woody thickening is obviously part of that decline in land condition. As I said, it and pasture composition are the two main discount factors. And as you say, unfortunately we can't do too much about the woody thickening in terms of legislation and that sort of thing. So the other thing we can do things about is pasture composition, or attempt to. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see that. We talk about pre-European condition of the land or whatever else. If we know, if we can prove that the timber's been thickening, why can't we thin it back to what we know it was back in 1980 or something like that? But that's a different argument.
Because I mean, now, people are using fire to keep control of trees, suckers, and
Which is
whatever.
It's fine up to about 2 meters in height, but then it's too late after that.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I think there's less damage done thinning trees out with a machine than there is absolutely cooking the hell out of everything and all the creatures that go with it. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure the answer on that one. I know what I would like the answer to be, and I don't think there's anyone that does want to go an absolutely total country like that. That's just ridiculous. But that's another whole conversation as well. But yeah, the density of the thickening, that's encroaching this country is I would deem quite detrimental.
I'm glad you brought up
Agreed.
the topic on fire. I have been provided with a short testimonial video from a property that's been using fire to manage small suckers and less palatable grass species. So we could probably quickly run that for you, and then that will precede the next topic of question, I assume.
Yeah, so Mick, can you tell us where your storm burn on this side, right? Over
That's
there?
right. December last year we had 100 mil of rain, and it was ideal conditions. We actually had, at the base here, you could still have a bit of 2 inches of water throughout this whole paddock.
Yeah.
But on the surface up here was dry yellow rat's tail, about this high.
Yes.
And we'd never been able to successfully burn it. We've tried a few times before in the past to burn it in our cool burning, and with no luck, just because it always has good moisture through here. It's a bit of a soak.
Yeah.
So, and then it becomes that time where it's too dangerous to burn when it gets too hot. So it needed that hot burn to reset that country. We burnt that, and we didn't burn that. We only burnt that side of the road. So you can still see how thick and healthy all the rat's tail is over here. Just the height of the seed levels you can see, compared to there. And then you can see here the amount of rank grass that's still here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But rat's tail, you think you got coverage, but you don't. See all that bare ground?
Yeah,
So it's a thief for sunlight. It hogs all the sunlight, and nothing else can grow.
yes.
Then we get the water come flooding through, washes that soil away, and you end up with these big puppets that they can get as high as you need.
Yeah, right.
You trip a horse over or a motorbike over that side there, you can't even get a motorbike in. It just sits up onto the grass.
Yes.
And but now in here,
All through here. And this was last December, did you say? Or?
yeah, just last December gone. So rat's tail's still here, but so's everything else. Everything else has had a chance. We've got kangaroo grass.
Kangaroo.
We've got over here. We've got some of the cooches starting to come up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
to
can
be
see.
honest, I'm just happy to see, lots of other plants other than just rat's tail.
Exactly.
So now we've got competition for sunlight, and we can start and improve the soil here. We've got secas growing there. I mean, there's bluebell, weeds, but I mean, all this stuff is repairing the soil.
Massive difference.
So yeah, and the with 2 meters of rain that has come through our wet season, this rat's tail everywhere else in the place is twice the size,
Yeah.
and this has struggled to compete with the other plants that are growing, even though they're not. Well, they've actually been grazed quite a bit. I think all these other competing plants around the place, so a big success.
That's awesome. Thanks for that, Mick.
My concern with the fires is, which again I haven't seen, is a cost analysis as a means to thin vegetation because of the loss of production. Because basically you go and cook 10,000 acres, and if it doesn't rain, I don't know what to tell your banker.
Yeah, you don't have 10,000 acres until it rains and something grows again.
If I can strategically thin country, I can keep that land in production, whether I stock it lighter or whatever I do, but I have a lot more options than if I just go and cook all the koalas and everything else that goes with it. That's my concern. I'm interested too, Neilo, with those land condition assessments. Was there many changes or implementation of infrastructure for water distribution or anything like that?
So basically, we don't have any information on management at each site.
Yeah.
So when they were first sort of done, they were, I think it was basically drive 20 kilometres and have a look over the fence and see what the land condition is like, make a quick assessment. So it's actually just a total average over the region. And obviously some areas have improved, some areas don't. Some areas have, totally different management, might have rotational grazing, other ones don't. And so it's just a pure, averaging. And so the fact that it keeps going down every time, despite, all these different management that might be going on is concerning, I guess, because we do know, that sites within water points, within a kilometre from water points or a couple of kilometres are going to be flogged out more than others, but because it's an average, you'd assume that, and they were sort of randomly put in, well, not put in, they're actually just points on a GPS that, this is actually what's happening, and we don't have any understanding of why it's happening apart from those things that we're measuring.
Yeah. Because I'd imagine controlling through water access would help significantly by that distribution, wouldn't it? I mean, we've definitely seen some big results, you know, just in the short term. We've seen some country, you've been here, some of that country that with minimal water points, now with that water distribution, a massive improvement.
Well, the actual,
condition.
the thing is that it can actually go and a lot of times it does go the other way because the land that wasn't watered wasn't grazed heavily, and so the 3P sort of pasture species are still there, whereas when land is actually watered. So when you put in another water point, if people are going to up the stocking rate to go with that water point, then you probably see that flogged out. But if you're going to maintain the stocking rate but just spread them out better, then you'll see, as you've mentioned, that your land condition might have improved.
Yeah. But if your cattle are doing better as a result of that, rather than increasing your stocking rate, if your cattle are doing better, they're in better order, better condition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sounds
All
okay.
righty. Thanks for organising, Julie.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for organising today.
That's all good.
All
Thank
right.
you for joining
Cheers,
us.
bye.
All right. See you later.
Bye. Thank you, Nilo and Casey, for putting together the land condition report. Thank you, Nilo, for presenting the land condition update for the Northern Gulf. Thank you for those who have attended this webinar today, and there will be a recording for the webinar available at our YouTube link in due course. Thank you.